With some of the many new things I've learnt from dairying and the huge network of people I've met, one big lesson has been never to say never. Your life can change so quickly. I joined Dairy Women's Network to meet some local dairy women and make some friends, and have got so much more than a social network. It opens your eyes to the huge input that women have to dairying and supporting their partners, and the opportunities to grow more if you want to step out of your comfort zone. There's also a quote that I wasn't sure where to put in somewhere, but if you have a preference, voice it. If you have a question, ask it. If you want to cry, bawl. If you need help, raise your hand and jump up and down. And a lot of those things I think the Dairy Women's Network help to do. Hi, my name is Brenda Hislop and I'm from Hiranui in North Canterbury. I've never thought of myself as a leader, and 12 years ago would have laughed at anyone introducing me as a dairy farmer or a dairy farmer's wife. I'd never stepped onto a dairy farm and had no dreams or aspirations for farm life at all, but living in the Wairarapa in the North Island was in a rural area. How life can change so quickly. I was married to my school boyfriend at 19 years old, and after 14 years with two beautiful daughters, and working part-time in my local medical centre, my marriage suddenly ended and my routine life took a big change. Having taken very little part in the decision-making of previous years, I had to take control and look after my daughters, who were then 9 and 11, and was amazed to find this a very powerful feeling of release, or being in control for the first time in a long time. I had to find my own voice. Like many women, I found strengths and support I didn't realise I had until you're forced to. After only 6 months on my own, I met Dave, the dairy farmer, who was share milking in the area, and to my family's surprise, I've never in the past been a quick decision maker, always the sensible one. Only 2 months later, I moved onto the farm with my girls. I remember my older brother saying at the time, as it was early June, "You'll never last. You've no idea what you're in for. Calving will soon change your mind." No, I thought I could continue working full-time off the farm in my job and take on the new blended family with Dave's 3 children and my own, and not need to be involved with the farm. I soon found out that farming is your life when you live on a dairy farm. This is the blended family and my first calf rearing days. Well, you can not be involved, or it's very hard to do so, with 4 staff and all the other events that go with it. Dealing with floods, we had major floods 2 years in a row, and the other usual farm dramas. Gradually listening and reading bits and pieces from farm magazines and papers that are always left lying around, and being surrounded by farm talk at any social events, I soon picked up some farming knowledge, probably more than I realised I had. Also learnt little things like going to the runoff in the early days for a ride meant being the gate opener, and the dog's body gopher is a really important job on a farm. 7 years ago, Dave's goal after 20 plus years of share milking was realised, and he bought our farm in the South Island. Due to financial opportunities, he bought a farm in the South Island. I took a long time to call it our farm, as I felt he'd worked his way to this, and it wasn't my goal or passion, and it had never been my aspiration to own a dairy farm. And I was never moving to the South Island. Over the next 4 years, Dave commuted from the North Island and changed from 50-50 share milking to the operations manager for the Maori Trust that we worked for. After 2 years, I had to make a big decision for me and support him with his goal, as he'd encouraged and supported me when I became suddenly the practice manager of the medical centre at short notice, with the sudden leaving of the doctor and his wife, who was the manager. I felt I wasn't qualified for the role, but again learnt more strengths I didn't know I had. So I agreed to move to the South Island, which meant leaving all of our family behind. We'd made our blended family work with how it was, and that wasn't how I would have chosen it, but moving away from them was another thing. I was lucky to get work 1 day a week off the farm at the local doctor's, but really struggled with being on the farm so much. And having heard other women talk today, you admit things like depression, but I was very lucky to, after having lost my identity after 15 years at one job, and I'd been very well known to all the locals in the North Island, and now I was in a new place, no friends, and felt that I didn't have an identity. But I was very lucky to have that 1 day a week job opportunity, and at the local medical centre, and was able to still have some contact with my previous life, I felt it was. We now have a very busy home with lots of visitors from the North Island and an equity partner in the farm who comes and stays every week. Visitors and family come to, as one of my children made the sign for Medbury Farm Work Camp for when we go to the airport, as we're always picking up people and dropping them off, but the children always feel when they come to visit they always end up working on the farm, and it's the work camp and the hot school holidays. With some of the many new things I've learnt from dairying and the huge network of people I've met, one big lesson has been never to say never. If you have a preference, voice it. If you have a question, ask it. If you want to cry, bawl. If you need help, raise your hand and jump up and down. And a lot of those things I think the Dairy Women's Network helped to do.